Hey there, marvelous DC fans, welcome back to the channel. The first reactions to Clayface's test screening are out and we've got the lowdown. Let's take a look. DC fans have been starving for a while, so DC Studios really said let's give them something to rave about. For months, we have only had a teaser and a release date, but finally we have real news. The test screenings of James Watkins Clayface just took place and the feedback hasn't held anything back. So grab your popcorn and let's see what this film is about to be like. Before we get into the reactions themselves, let's rewind a bit, because the road to this test screening is a whole story in itself. Listen, I'm a big fan of Mike Flanagan, so when I tell you that I follow him like crazy, I mean it. So imagine my surprise back in 2021 when Mike Flanagan tweeted that he was interested in a standalone Clayface project. Yeah, I know. He literally described his dream vision as a standalone horror thriller tragedy. The pitch of this idea at first didn't go anywhere, but Flanagan was adamant, and that's honestly something about him that I really appreciate a lot. You need to have a lot of gusto if you want to be someone in Hollywood. Mike Flanagan stuck to his guns, and then 2 years later, in 2023, he and his Intrepid Pictures partner walked into DC Studios and pitched that exact same idea to James Gunn and Peter Safran. When Gunn was asked about how this project came together, he said, "Mike Flanagan is somebody who I've been friendly with for a long time, and he wrote me about Clayface. It's a body horror movie. It's a horror movie that, like any cool body horror movie, just happens to be in the DCU. And then he wrote the script, and the script was fantastic. We didn't plan to do Clayface. That was really something he brought to us." So basically, Flanagan cold pitched his idea to the DC Studios, and for Gunn, it was something completely out of this world. No one was ready for the Clayface movie, but when you have a really good script, you cash in on that instead of letting it go to waste. That's the kind of energy I want from a Batman villain movie. Now, here's the thing. When Sylvester Stallone wrote the screenplay for Rocky, he was very adamant that he got the opportunity to play Rocky. Otherwise, he wasn't going to sell the script to any of the studios, no matter how much money they offered. Kinda like that, when Mike Flanagan pitched the idea, he wanted to direct the thing himself. Peter Safran later revealed how badly he wanted that to happen too, saying, "We really wanted him to direct it. I mean, really wanted him to direct it. But Flanagan is so booked up. He had so many things on his plate." They're referring to the Exorcist reboot and the Carrie miniseries, so Mike Flanagan was really busy. There was no way he could have done everything, so the directing duties went to James Watkins, the director behind Speak No Evil and Eden Lake, while Hossein Amini came on board to help finalize the screenplay. But according to Gunn, the story the audiences are about to see belongs entirely to Flanagan. So with that out of the way, let's talk about the thing you're here for, because Clayface has actually had 2 test screenings now, and after the first one, when I tell you the audience has been buzzing, I mean it. So what's got them buzzing? Well, according to a scooper who goes by Cryptic HD, the vibe in the room was very positive. According to their post, which has been circulating widely, Clayface is approximately 1 hour 50 minutes currently. A test screening recently happened and it seems audiences loved it, said to have some Joker 2019 vibes. A few references to Vanilla Sky 2001, Substance 2024, and The Incredible Hulk 2008, which is definitely one of the strangest reference lists I've ever seen, especially attached to a superhero movie. And honestly, I kinda dig that, because the psychological unraveling of Joker with the identity blending of Vanilla Sky and the body horror of The Substance sounds like the right kind of blend for a movie that might just be the most refreshing thing out there in the DCU. Who knew expansion of Horizons would come like this? There was another outlet that's worth talking about. They summarized the buzz pretty simply. They noted that comparisons suggest that Clayface could combine elements of body horror, emotional drama, and a tragic character study, which definitely sounds like DCU's Clayface with all the buzz we've heard so far. Another report of the same screening said it's a grounded psychological horror story. Now, grounded is definitely not the word I would have imagined when it comes to a movie about a man whose face literally comes off in his hands. I mean, heck, that sounds like the least grounded of it all. But that's just a part of the charm, I guess, because I'd be lying if I said I wasn't curious. The horror always feels a lot harder if the movie plays its cards right, and the audience gets invested emotionally into the characters we see on screen. Then, when things go to hell, we feel dread for them. Now, let's talk about the runtime, because this is one of the more concrete details that's come out from this first viewing. It's one of the few things that hasn't changed since. Multiple outlets have all said the same thing. The current cut of the film is said to clock in at around 1 hour and 50 minutes. This may not seem like a big deal, but I mean it when I say it is a big deal, because most DCU films tend to run a little longer than that. So with a runtime of 110 minutes, the movie is forced to have a tighter pacing, which might just work in its favor, owing to its horror genre. I'm not saying you can't have a 2.5 hour body horror movie, but it's infinitely harder to have a good 2.5 hour body horror movie. Now let's talk casting, because I'm sure you guys are all wondering about that. So somewhere in the middle of all this test screening chatter, word broke that Aaron Paul has joined the cast, saying Feature First is also reporting that Aaron Paul, Breaking Bad, Invincible, has joined the cast in a minor role, but we don't have any details on his character. Naturally, the internet is in a bit of a frenzy now, wondering who Aaron Paul is going to play in the first place. Then, after a while, we got a slightly more detailed follow-up report, where, according to a scooper called MTTSH, Aaron Paul will play Matt Hagen's father in a meaningless cameo. So if you're an Aaron Paul fan, then you definitely have to keep your eyes peeled for this little cameo. The report also stated that this film felt very standalone. It's funnier than expected, very R-rated, very gory, has nudity too. I wasn't really expecting a dark comedy vibe out of it, but I kinda see the charm in it too. A lot of the best horror movies have dark comedy in them, so that kind of implies the DC Studios genuinely wants to make a good horror movie, giving it space to breathe on its own without being shackled to franchise setup duties. It's definitely standing apart from the wider DCU, which is an intentional choice, because reports on the screening have mentioned over and over again that Batman is never shown or even referenced in the movie, and there are no other DCU cameos, which for me is a refreshing change. I love Batman as much as the next person, but I want to see something more too. Clayface doesn't need Batman looming over his story for this to work, and keeping Bruce Wayne out of the picture entirely lets Matt Hagen's descent feel more isolating and more like something that could genuinely happen. The synopsis of the movie literally goes like, once the world's most beloved actor, Matt Hagen's glamorous life is shattered when a forbidden affair with a Gotham City mob boss's wife leads to his brutal disfigurement. Desperate to reclaim his shattered identity and his prized looks, Matt turns to a mysterious female doctor who administers an experimental underground drug. However, the miracle cure comes with a horrifying price. Triggered by deep sorrow, trauma, and fits of rage, Matt's face begins to melt, slowly transforming him into a monstrous entity. Does this sound like a movie that even needs Batman in it? Yeah, I didn't think so either. Owing to the whole body horror aspect, there's also been chatter about how the shapeshifting itself will be depicted on screen, and from the first screening, the filmmakers are actually going for a more restrained, unsettling approach, instead of giving us one of those monster spectacles we're used to. The early reporting noted that there are no full-body transformations, as Matt Hagen shifts his limbs when in a rage for out-of-control attacks. Keeping the transformations tied to rage, at least at first, makes the whole power seem less like a superhero ability and more like a symptom of something that's broken inside Hagen, which again is exactly the emotional horror angle that I would expect from Mike Flanagan. But it sadly didn't last the whole time, because here's where things get interesting. After 2 weeks from the first screening, Feature First actually released a follow-up report claiming that Clayface had quietly gone back into testing. As they put it, we can reveal that, surprisingly, a second round of test screenings will be taking place tonight at the Warner Brothers lot in Burbank, California. This is a rather unusual move, but Feature First explained that Warner Brothers might be A/B testing, where 2 versions of the film are tested with selected audiences to analyze which is the better product. And that little gamble worked, because after the second screening, Insider Cryptic HD Quality followed up with a detail that stated, Clayface fully transforms into his iconic final form later in the film. He's a big mother, stunning and grotesque, similar to the image below with an asymmetrical jaw. James Watkins has also talked about the version that Flanagan initially delivered before all the rewrites happened, and there were some fascinating materials in the initial screenplay that sadly didn't make the cut. Watkins described Flanagan's idea as, there were mythic things within the shape-shifting world of him. Questions of our humanity, how we lose our humanity, and what it means to be a monster. Apparently, those elements were trimmed down so they could keep the grounded feel for the movie once placed in the wider DCU, which feels a little weird when you consider how weird Gunn and Safran's universe has been so far. But still, even with the trimmings, Mike Flanagan's script works wonders, as the multiple positive test screenings would confirm. Because, you see, he actively pursued this script for years. He was driven by a specific piece of nostalgia, literally tracing his inspiration back to the beloved 2-part episode of Batman the Animated Series, saying, of course it was. I mean, that is the perfect story. This kind of childhood-rooted devotion always works out well when it comes to screenplays. All that matters is for us to find out if the devotion translated well onto the screen, and from the sounds of it, it probably did. That's everything we've got on the Clayface test screening buzz for now. Clayface will hit your nearest theaters October 23rd, and I have a feeling that this might end up being one of the most unexpected standout films in the entire DCU as we know it, because of its tone and pacing. I for one am definitely keeping my calendar clean on that day to catch the first day first show. What about you guys? Let me know down in the comments what you guys are hoping to see from Matt Hagen's descent into monsterhood. Like and subscribe if you want to see more content like this, and I'll see you guys next time.